Well, let's move on to a huge issue which many in the media simply ignored. Outgoing President Joe Biden pardoned his immediate family from crimes that we're not even being told about.
Blowback over the Hunter Biden pardon has been swift. Republican lawmakers quick to criticize President Biden over this. Some Democrats also speaking out about the bad precedent that they fear that this sets.
Yes, according to CNN, it is just some Republicans and some Democrats angry about these entirely corrupt and inappropriate pardons. And according to CNN, the problem is not the pardons themselves, but the precedent they set. Because now the other side of politics has full political cover to do the same thing. Now, the language they use is very deliberate. Some commentators on CNN, such as political contributor Karen Finney, were even outright defending the pardons.
Well, look, literally, the president recognizes that Republicans have been for years now trying to attack the president himself, go after his family. And when you have someone who literally ran their campaign on retribution, on the idea of I will be your retribution and getting back at his enemies, I would imagine, obviously I haven't spoken to the president about this, but I would imagine the president took a look at this and said, I want to make sure this is ironclad, that there is nothing that can be done to circumvent what I'm going to do to protect my son and to try to take the target off of his back once and for all.
But back in 2020, the US media was looking at pardons in a different light. Now, at the time, there were reports that Trump had discussed the prospect of pardoning his own family members. And this is how the media reacted.
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family.
Is there an innocent explanation for someone to seek preemptive pardons for family members? Would you do that if you knew you were innocent and just worried about outside forces?
The answer to that is going to be no. If you haven't done anything wrong, you sit there and go, what do you need a preemptive pardon for?
If he pardons people preemptively, he's essentially telling the public that these people have committed crimes. And we may not be aware of what they are, but the pardon is clear evidence that crimes have been committed.
Kosha, what are your views on this?
So good. I wonder if those contributors and people like that genuinely have short memories, or they think we can't find videotape. And in this day and age of social media and X and whatnot, those things very quickly get found out, circulated, go viral, and they show mashups of literally opposing things that the same person said 4 years apart. So it doesn't work, and I wonder why they still do it. Maybe they're speaking to that small swath of the public that still is getting their news only from traditional sources and no other sources that do this real-time fact-checking in real life. Everybody knows it, the numbers again with pardons. The last two presidents, Trump and Obama, did around 1,700 to 1,900 pardons throughout their term. And before that, it was even less. And these Biden pardons total 8,064. That tells us one of two things. Either the American justice system somehow just completely broke in the Biden years that required him to use his presidential pardon power so freely, or he's somebody who's been playing fast and loose with his presidential pardon power, and the nature of these blanket 11-year pardons to all sorts of people. Nobody is being fooled by it. It doesn't look good. It is setting a very dangerous precedent, and I think it's going to really damage his legacy when history books look back and write about the Biden years.
Oh, his legacy's in tatters. And I mean, Kosha, the other thing is he told the American people he wouldn't do these pardons. There's an extra element to it. And I don't know why we all just can't agree in the media, as commentators, everybody, that perhaps nobody should be doing these broad, sweeping pardons that lack transparency, that don't specify what crimes we're talking about. But we're having this situation where just one side of politics, well, they're defending it.
Yes, and it's never been done before, these types of preemptive blanket pardons. So there actually is a very interesting legal discussion that's emerging in the U.S. right now about whether or not they actually can stand up in court. And it'll be very interesting to see if the Trump DOJ decides to pursue that and maybe prosecute some of these people anyway, and then they would submit this preemptive pardon as their defense, that probably would make its way up to the Supreme Court, and it would be a very new issue that's never landed on the Supreme Court's desk before, and it'll be very interesting to see how they rule on that. Also, these people are not immune from states prosecuting them, because presidential pardon only covers them federally, and they're also not protected from civil lawsuits. So they still do have legal exposure, and it's going to be very interesting to see if different prosecutorial offices in the country decide to pursue it, just to sort of figure out what happened under here that warranted, in Biden's mind, necessitated these types of blanket pardons.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at least tell us what the crimes are that they're agreeing to be pardoned from. But look, moving on, because a bishop at Donald Trump's inaugural prayer service hijacked the service to rant about immigration and other social issues right in front of the president. And just seeing the look on President Trump's face while she turned the sermon political made for great TV.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
The bishop suddenly became a media star, and soon she was on The View to discuss her brave and fearless outburst.
Let me ask you this. You seem to have more fearlessness than anyone in Congress right now, ma'am. What made you decide to use that opportunity for this message, or didn't you have any apprehension about it?
My response, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be with you today. My responsibility that morning, yesterday morning, was to reflect, to pray with the nation for unity. And as I was pondering what are the foundations of unity, I wanted to emphasize respecting the honor and dignity of every human being.
Kosha, the media, particularly in the US, is very good at using emotion to drive debates. And I think we've seen evidence on this with the immigration debate, where there are people crying on the border as if, this one individual case has, more weight than the more macro issue of capacity in the country, etc. What did you make of the way that this woman just became a star? She became the champion of the people on The View, who, very soft interview, by the way. What do you make of the way that they've done that?
Emotion is very powerful. It speaks more powerfully than facts and logic, so it makes sense that it's a tactic the media uses. But I do think in time, if you keep repeating the same original tactic again and again, it does lose its bite, and that's certainly happening, back to the trust in media being at an all-time low. I also would say that a Christian holy message shouldn't require a PR tour after that. If she really was using prayer to bring unity, as she said, why is she running around in the media? That's not something we typically see from priests or people from the church, so that's interesting. There's been lots of investigations into who she is, and she's been a political activist and quite staunchly opposed to Trump for many years. That's all coming out now. But, this will run its course. I don't think it's going to change any minds or certainly change the agenda that Team Trump is pursuing full speed with respect to immigration and the other issues that she raised. And this will probably be in the dustbin of history by next week.
Kosha Gada, thank you for your insight.